All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am Hannah Pinio. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum, and I'm so happy to have you all here today to learn a little bit more about submitting an application for our Urban and Community Forestry grants. Joining me here today are our grant managers for those grants, so they'll be able to offer a lot more advice based on what they've learned from the current grants that are in process and reviewing the grants that we've reviewed thus far. Before we get started, I did just want to let you all know that we are recording this, so we will have it, and all of you who are attending will get an email with the recording either later today or tomorrow, depending on how long it takes for that to process. And then it will also be posted on our website, plantnebraska.org, so you can send it to others or reference it if you need to another time. Of course, this is not your only chance to get your answers for any questions that you have. If you do have questions that we're unable to get to today, or you think of others later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we will be happy to answer them to the best of our abilities. With all of that said, this webinar is mostly or exclusively for people who are looking to apply. So if you currently have a UCF grant or you are working through the paperwork of starting your grant, please direct those questions to your assigned grant manager so that we can tailor a response to your specific project or program. That will just make sure that we can be very specific with you, but this one is for the application process. So with that, I am going to let the grant managers introduce themselves. So we'll do Chrissy, John, and then Sarah, because Sarah will share her screen and take us away on a little presentation. So Chrissy, if you'll go first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chrissy Land. I recognize a lot of your names, but there's also many of you that I don't know. I'm in Scottsbluff. I am the Western UCF Grant Manager. I gotta kind of cover Kearney-ish West, Highway 183-ish. We blend across the state, so.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Woodworth, and I am an Eastern Nebraska grant manager. I'm the Assistant Community Forester over here for the Statewide Arboretum and the Nebraska Forest Service. Happy to see all your faces, and we're going to have a good presentation here today. So there we go.
And I'm Sarah Browning. I'm also one of the grant managers on the eastern part of the state. So welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you joining us here today. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started. And if you have questions for us, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And we will make sure that we get all of those questions answered. Okay. So just to start off, just some basics about the grants. The grants are, the purpose of them is for tree planting, tree removal, and tree care. And when we're talking about trees here, we're talking about large shade trees. So that's the focus that we want to stay with primarily for this grant. Now, there are lots of different sites and different entities that are eligible to apply for these grants. And we'll get into that more here in the next couple of slides. But, a few eligible sites would just include, pretty much any city, village, town, county, tribal governments. We've worked with natural resource districts as partners, and they make great projects. School districts, school grounds, and then just any other 501c3 nonprofit organization. So there are lots of different organizations that are available or that are eligible to apply for these grants. So we really would encourage everyone who is interested to investigate and see if you're eligible and possibly put in an application. Now, if you've gotten this far, you've probably already been on our website, our plantnebraska.org, and the information about these grants specifically is under the what we do project funding section. And we'll give you more information about that here in a little bit. So there are lots of places that apply. And I'm going to let Jonathan jump in here on this next slide.
Sweet, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so we kind of just wanted to reiterate some of the grant goals, um, as you guys are looking to apply and kind of building this project from the beginning, from the ground up. And so like Sarah mentioned, this grant, is a tree planting, tree care, tree removal, and workforce development grant. So there's kind of a lot of ways that you can utilize this grant funding to improve your community forest. But overall, that is the main goal of this grant, is to improve your community's urban forest or urban canopy. And, we have some stuff listed on this slide with, specific goals that you can look to improve in your community forest. Whether it's preserving your tree canopy for future generations to use, whether that's increasing tree diversity amongst your community, whether that's increasing workforce development. And by that, what we mean is, building people up into becoming arborists or an adjacent field, and also enhancing green stormwater infrastructure. Now, these are just 4 main points that we wanted to list. Obviously, tree benefits extend greatly into the community. We could talk about ecosystem services and how many birds and insects they feed, or we could talk about shade producing trees in your public parks and on your right of way. So yeah, there's, that's really the main goal of this grant, is to improve your community forest in any way that you see that fit, falling into those categories that I've kind of laid out for you.
So when we talk about, whether or not your community or your area might be eligible, one of the first things that we want you to do is check out this Nebraska Forest Service eligibility map. And you'll find a link for this on our Urban Community Forestry page on the website. And this map is created through the USFS, the United States Forest Service. And we're looking at areas where either the community is disadvantaged in some way, or there is not a good existing level of tree canopy in those areas. So there are various factors that play into whether or not a community is considered eligible or not. But here you can see the overall map of Nebraska. And then I just gave you one specific community of Grand Island, Nebraska. You see that certain sections of Grand Island do qualify. They are in the shaded green areas, but other sections of town don't. And it's not uncommon to find this. I know the little town where I live, Wahoo, only about a quarter of the town qualifies as an eligible site. So if you're thinking about a project, one of the first things we would have you do is check out this map and make sure that the area where you're thinking about doing your project is in an eligible area, okay? All of the projects do have to be located within an eligible area. And so one of the other qualifications for this grant is that these are public tree projects. So this is not a grant that an individual homeowner can apply for, to get money to take out a tree or to replace a tree. But if the community applies as a community project, then trees on private property or on right-of-ways, street right-of-ways, can be taken down. So if you have individual trees in the right-of-way throughout your community that need to come down, whether it's an ash tree or it's a dead tree or hazardous or whatever the situation may be, it is possible to do that with this grant. So streets or trails, right-of-way, trees, those qualify. City parks, schools and colleges, libraries, courthouses, cemeteries, tribal grounds. You can see all of these different areas would qualify. Things that don't qualify would be, again, private individual homes, gated properties, private businesses, or projects that are outside of Nebraska or on federal land. Okay, so those areas would not qualify for this grant.
I do want to clarify one thing on that, which is that, like Sarah said, if the community applies, and you want to do removals or planting on private property, including front yards and backyards, and it qualifies, you can do that. It's just that the private landowner or homeowner can't get the funding. So it would have to be the community or a nonprofit or something like that that is doing the work.
Right. I'll take this one, Sarah. And so we kind of just wanted to show you the levels of projects that we accept for this grant. And so these projects can be either a 1-year, 2-year, or a 3-year project timeline. And they can also fall into the 3 levels that we have listed there, which is obviously level 1 between 10 and 29,999, level 2 between 30,000 and 99,999, and then level 3 being between 100,000 and 300,000, with 300,000 being the max that you can go out for this grant. But obviously, as that box on the screen shows you, you can apply for this grant multiple times. So we do encourage you guys to think about that when you're doing these, when you're planning out these projects and doing these applications. I think one thing that I would really stress is to, bite off as much as you can chew. And what I mean by that is, don't try to oversell yourself or do too much. I would say kind of keep it limited into something that is attainable and feasible. And then after that, you can then reapply for more money, to help your community out. So I think we've seen some of these projects maybe look big, which is great. I think, that's amazing, but maybe keeping it doable and feasible, like I said, would benefit your community in various ways.
And as long as you are in good standing for your first grant and you are getting things done, you can start the application and apply for another one while that first one is still active. You don't have to wait until the first one is completed before you apply again. And so if you're like 2/3 or halfway through your first one and you're like, wow, we've got a lot more work, we could use a lot more money, or we have a new partner, then you can submit a new application. I mean, you have to then keep them separate and manage them separately. So just make sure that you have the capacity to do that. But if you're not in good standing on your first one, you probably won't get approved for a second one. So just keep that in mind.
So if your community has, let's say you're applying for a grant for a school landscape project, but you know that your community also wants to apply for a grant for work around the courthouse or work in the community on street trees. It's perfectly fine for you to submit 2 applications, or for your community to submit two or more applications for the community. We're not going to say, oh, we've already given that community one, we're not going to give them another. We're going to evaluate the projects individually on their merits, and so you're not limited to just getting 1 grant per community. Okay.
Right. And you could
Go ahead.
pile. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you could pile all of those activities or different locations into one application, or if you would rather, you can keep them separate.
But
We
we
did
would
get a-
encourage you to think about, the length of these projects. I mean, if you've never done a project like this before, it may be, you may feel more comfortable just going with a 1-year grant, but there's no reason that you can't lengthen these out and give yourself more time to work through the project so that you can really get it done and accomplished well. So even if you're looking at a relatively small amount of money, if you're only looking for, maybe $100,000, there's no reason you couldn't make that a 3-year grant. So don't limit yourself on time. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get the work accomplished. Okay. Okay, so here we have a listing for you of some of the eligible activities. So these would be activities that would be covered with grant funds. So removing at-risk trees, maybe trees that are already dead or that have significant problems, dead branches, extensive decay, various other issues. So tree removal is one of the great benefits of this grant, because there are very few other grants that will cover the cost of tree removal, which can be quite expensive. And then ash trees. We know our ash trees are succumbing to emerald ash borer, as well as other environmental issues. And so the removal of ash trees is something that can also be covered by this grant. Site preparation, as you get an area ready for the new trees to go into place, site preparation is covered. Tree planting, tree pruning. You know, say again, maybe your street trees in town need to be pruned. Maybe they haven't been pruned in a long time and there are a lot of dead branches or various other things that need to be addressed. So just tree pruning can be covered. Young tree management. So we know that once new trees get in the ground, they need to be watered, they need to be mulched, they need to be cared for to make sure that they establish well and that they will get off to a good start. So, you know, you can include all of the things related to maintaining your new tree plantings. That is a covered expense. We've talked a couple of times already about workforce development. We would really love to see more people getting into the arboriculture industry, becoming arborists. So, you know, even working with young people to improve their knowledge or increase their interest in this as a career field. Or maybe you have someone in your city on the parks staff that you want to become a certified arborist, covering the cost for study materials and testing and all of those things is also a covered expense. And then we know that especially with the big tree removal, you may have to contract that out. You may have to hire someone to come in and do that work for you. So contracting those that work to other companies is a covered expense. And then staff time. You know, if you have a Parks and Rec staff and they're going to be doing some of this work themselves, the time that they put in to do these jobs is a covered expense. And so, and plus there are more where we don't have the space here to list all of them for you, but you'll find that a lot of more detail about the covered expense in the grant application materials. So I'd really encourage you to review those for more things that could be considered a covered expense. But one thing that we wanted to make sure that you know is if you're gonna be taking some trees down with grant money, there is a requirement of a 1-to-1 tree replacement ratio. So for every tree you remove, you have to plant at least one tree. Okay. Now that tree doesn't have to go back in exactly the same spot where the tree came down, but it does need to go back into an eligible area. Okay. So just keep that in mind. It's 1-to-1 tree removal and tree replacement.
Sarah, can I add on the workforce development piece?
Yeah.
That could also look like a voucher or sort of a scholarship for any arborists that are doing work in those eligible areas. So if you are, say, the NRD or a nonprofit that sort of oversees the general area or even the city or village office, and you have some arborists that might be interested in becoming certified, you can offer vouchers for them to do that rather than trying to get your staff qualified.
All right, John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can do that. All right. And so I just wanted to reiterate kind of what Sarah was saying, referencing the grant documents on our website for specific questions about eligible activities and expenses. But we did want to get some ideas out in front of you guys so that you can see them and know that they're covered. And so on this slide, I'm just going to quickly go through some other eligible expenses that we thought were worth mentioning in this webinar. And, you know, so that's obviously the cost of trees, plants, mulch, and supplies. You know, that's guy wires, trunk guards, mulching, all of that stuff is covered under this grant in hopes that, you know, we're providing good tree stewardship and we are enhancing that, the process of establishment and making sure these trees survive for the duration of the project and much longer. You also can purchase tools using this grant. Now there is a specific guideline that you have to follow, and that is no equipment can be purchased using this grant, and that is anything under $5,000 free market value or more, and that also includes parts. So for instance, you can't buy the parts to build a tractor and then build the tractor using this grant. You can't buy the tractor straight out either, or anything that's over that $5,000 limit. However, you can purchase stuff like pole saws, chainsaws, and things of that nature to ensure that you're hitting these project goals, as long as it fits into that project guideline. They are also limited to 5% of the total grant project. So we just ask that you don't write your grant, entirely to buy tools. But if that is part of something that you need to provide for your city park staff or for the people who are going to take care of these trees, by all means do that. Another thing that we've figured we should mention is drip irrigation. So this grant will not cover in-ground irrigation purchasing or implementation, but it will cover drip line irrigation specifically to the trees that are planted using this grant funding. So of course you can't use this grant to put in drip line in the other city park that we're not planting trees in. But if you are putting drip line down for the trees that you are planting with this grant, that is an eligible expense. And then obviously you can do some reasonable concrete removal. That there are some restrictions on that as well, and that could be project specific. So if that is something that you're going to do in your project, definitely get in touch with some people and we can kind of smooth that process out for you. And you can also, like we mentioned on the last slide, cover the salaries and benefits of personnel.
So, I mean, another example of tools that you might purchase. If you have a truck or something and you want to purchase a tank to put in the back of the truck for water, so that you can fill it with water and then drive around to water your trees, the purchasing of that tank could be an eligible expense, not the purchase of the truck. Okay. You can also rent equipment. If you think you need equipment for just a short period of time and you don't want to purchase it, you can rent it. That's also a covered expense. So just a couple of other quick notes here about things that you'll have to work on as you get started on a grant application. One thing that we need every project to have is a unique identity identifier, a UEI number. And this is not the same as a DUNS number. I think the DUNS number is an old format. This is the UEI is something new. It's not the same as your tax identification number. Okay, so it's different from that. If you go to sam.gov, you can get a UEI number for free. Okay, you don't have to pay for it. It's completely free. Be a little careful about that because there are, I know Hannah has said in the past, there are people who will try to charge you for it or try to sell you a UEI number. You don't have to do that. It is completely free. So don't feel like you have to pay for it. But we do need one for every single project. Okay, even if it's a small project, we still need you to have one. Okay. The other thing we want, kind of a basic thing about this grant, this is a reimbursement grant. So if you submit an application and we award you the grant, we're not going to just send you, $50,000. Here's your grant dollars. What you have to do is to do the work, and then you have to pay for the work. So let's say you're going to take some trees down. You hire a contractor to take the trees down. He sends you an invoice. You pay him. Then what you're going to do is you're going to send us that invoice and that proof of payment, and we will reimburse you for the cost of that expense. All right. So you do have to be able to manage those upfront payments in your budget. And you have to think about that and work that into your plan. A lot of our projects have a financial partner, and that financial partner is the one that has the money to make the payments and then wait for the reimbursement, while the other partner is more of the project lead. They're the ones who are out there managing the project day to day, hiring the contractors, making sure that the right work is done. So if you need to involve a financial partner in your project to make it feasible for you to do this, then that is completely fine. Okay. And then you know, a lot of grants that people apply or that might be available, you have to provide some kind of a match, you know, like sometimes it's a 50-50 match. There is no match with this grant. So you don't have to come up with any kind of match resources. It's 100% grant, but it is a reimbursement grant. Okay. All right.
And yeah, we just wanted to put some important dates in front of you guys in terms of the grant application cycle. So currently the next deadline we are looking at is in 20 days at the end of this month, September 30th. We're calling that Q3. And those applications will be reviewed and we will determine who gets those awards and we will send those award letters out in November. And then as you can see, the rest of that schedule has been put together as well. So the next round would be December 31st with award alerts in February and so on and so forth. You can find this on our website, plantnebraska.org, but we figured this was a good way to just get it in front of you so you have these important dates right at the top of your head.
Right. And don't feel like you need to get your application in early. I mean, we don't evaluate applications on a first come, first served basis. We don't start to look at applications until the application deadline has passed. So there's no need to rush to try to get your application done quickly. It's better to take your time and get it really fleshed out very well and thought through, and just have it to us by that deadline. Okay. And if you can't make the September 30th deadline, then you can always go for the December deadline. And, you know, originally the funds we received from the Inflation Reduction Act was $10 million. We have allocated some of that to projects in the last, year and a half, but there is plenty of money left. So, you know, we would encourage you really to get those applications in and spread the word in your community about this opportunity so that we can get, you know, even more applications going. Okay. And so here I mentioned earlier that I was going to show you the link to get to the Urban Community Forestry Grant specific project resources. You can find that here, plantnebraska.org/UCF-grants. You'll find all of our information there. And John is going to take you on a little bit of a tour here of or if you want to just talk us through this, John.
Yeah. So what it shows is our homepage, that first one that it was showing. Could you restart the video maybe, Sarah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me go back.
Sorry, it's kind of quick starting. So yeah, right now it's showing you the homepage of plantnebraska.org, and I'm hovering up to that What We Do button, and I'm going to grant resources and urban and community forestry grants. And then here I am just kind of showing you all of these important things to notice on that website, and how each of those links will take you to a different page that also has more information. This grant resource page is what I want you guys to focus on. You do have, these stuff that I would suggest to read through and kind of familiarize yourself with before applying for this grant. I figured a short form video might be beneficial for people to watch and see where those resources are located. I know it can kind of get foggy when we just tell you to use a link, and then there's a bunch of other links in there, and you're like, which one is which? So this small video is just showing you kind of what each of those links does and what that page should look like when you're navigating through it correctly.
This document is the basic guidelines for the grant and about the application that you'll fill out. Here's all of the documents. There's a template for your budget narrative, a template for your budget itself, and then all of the guidelines for the request for proposal. You'll find that there. Here is the template budget narrative. Kind of help you jumpstart your development of your budget and your budget narrative. And yeah, so that's all at our here at the project funding urban community forestry link. Okay.
So to address one of the questions in the chat about how long does a typical application take to complete, Hannah had mentioned that varies widely depending on how many different things you want to do in your project. Honestly, the most time I don't think is necessarily the actual putting words into the application. It is putting your plan together and deciding what elements do you want to focus on, how big or small of a project do you want to have. You're going to spend more time in meetings with your green team making the plan. And once you have the plan, you're pretty straightforward on the video that they were just showing with the request for proposal, which is essentially the application in a PDF form to let you know what those questions are going to look like. You cannot fill out a PDF or a Word document and then submit that. You have to fill out the application through the website. But that at least gives you talking points for those meetings that you can discuss and determine. Look at that budget, look at those different areas, and figure out what is your project going to include? What's your objectives? What's your outcomes? And then once you have that, we don't need you to story tell every single answer. We just need the cut, the dry, the facts. Are you planting? Are you pruning? Are you doing workforce development? Are you putting in salary and benefits? What are the pieces that you're picking from this menu and putting into your project?
And so that kind of brings us to the end. Here I've listed the contact information for myself and John and Chrissy. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you might have as you're putting your applications together. We'd be happy to help you. And so I think now for the next, 20, 25 minutes, we'll just open it up to questions. If you have any questions that we can help you out with now, let's go ahead and do that. So are there questions in the chat that we haven't addressed, or have you guys answered all these already?
Let me just go over them in case people didn't see them.
Okay.
Let's do that. So some of the questions so far have been, could a small village tree board apply for a grant that is less than 10,000? The minimum for this grant is $10,000. So what I recommend doing in those cases is partnering with other local groups that qualify, a different town, a village, your NRD, someone like that, who can put together a group of people that'll get you over $10,000. Does the one-to-one tree have to be the same species of the tree being removed? No. We have a list of approved species, so we can help you come up with the right species. All the grant managers are here to help you identify those. We do have species that are excluded that you may not plant, and that is why it is a requirement of this grant to get your tree species approved ahead of time before you purchase and plant, so that way we can make sure that they do work for your location and all of that good stuff. One thing to note is that we will not reimburse for columnars, ornamentals, and then some of those excluded species. So we cannot pay for any of those. Could grant money be used to construct a shed to house tools and supplies? No, that's construction, and this grant can't cover construction as an expense or an activity. If a community wants to remove invasive species, is there still a requirement of one-to-one planting minimum? Yes, that's where this one gets a little weird with invasive species. So it may not be the best fit for you if you're just trying to do an invasive species removal and no planting. How long does a community have to wait for reimbursement? That can take 4 to 10 weeks for it to hit your bank account. And it is a direct deposit from the state of Nebraska is how that works. How long, I think Chrissy kind of already answered that question of how long does a typical application take? Okay, Sarah, can you bring up the deadline for applications again? Kathy had that question, so we can share that.
Sure.
And then can you suggest a way to keep track of hours so they can be submitted for reimbursement? What proof of payment is required? All of that. Yes. I mean, the best way, like, since this is a reimbursement grant, the best way to keep track of hours that need reimbursed is through payroll. So your community should have a way that you process payroll, and then they pay you through your paycheck, and we can receive those payroll reports from the community. That's how we've done it with a lot of places. You know, you're punching in and out, so that will work for us to help you. Here's the grant application deadlines. So if you're applying, so it's a 90-day rolling basis, basically. So the application is always open, so you can always be working on it if you want to. Just because the deadline passes, we don't like clear out your application. You have to start all over. So you can keep working on it as you go. So the next one is September 30th, and we will let you know at the end of November. After that, it's December 31st, and we'll let you know at the end of February, and so on and so forth. And that'll go until we've allocated all of the funds. So, let's see.
Dennis is asking about
Yeah.
semi-heavy equipment, stump grinder, chipper, or tree spade. We couldn't purchase those, but you could rent it or you could contract it. So you could do those methods.
And Brock, we are working on a list of approved trees, so we will have that available for very soon for the next grant cycle.
I got 3 quick questions here.
Okay.
If I can just ask here, this is Dean. Sorry, I came in a little late. Can this presentation be available to use to our city council and tree people? Can we use this presentation? It's very good to explain.
Yeah, it'll be sent to you via email because it's being recorded, and it will be posted online later. So you're welcome to use it whatever you would like to.
Excellent. Second question is then, one of the issues that's going on with us right now in Blue Springs is, again, they want to maybe get some of the trees off of the city property, then onto the private landowner too, so they have a bite into the game, for care. Is that a problem if we remove a city tree that's on city property, but then the landowner decides will say, yes, we will take that tree and take care of it on their property? Is that a technicality we have to be concerned about or not?
The replanting needs to be as close to the tree that was removed as possible. So of course, not on top of it, that wouldn't be appropriate, but across the street is fine, but we don't want, for instance, like a bunch of trees removed in a neighborhood and then all planted in a park, so that then we have a disproportionate shade, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, but what I'm questioning is, we've had a row of trees that's been planted there over the years, and anyway, of course, we want to salvage what we can, but there's going to have to be some removed within the city property, near the street. But the city council people were wanting to maybe know if they can just be moved into the private property. It would be just right across from that tree, from the sidewalk. You see what I mean? The sidewalk,
Yeah.
you got the city access, and then you have the private, but it'd be just on the private property near where that tree was. Is that possible or not?
Yeah, that is an eligible planting area.
Okay, and last question, I'll leave you alone. Is it, can a nonprofit, I missed that, can a nonprofit apply for this who cooperates with the city?
Yes.
They can. Thank you.
It's very important that if you're gonna work on it with a partner, that the partner knows. Okay? We've run into that a few times. The partners have been listed and they didn't know they were on an application. So if you're planning to work with your tree board or your Parks and Rec department or a nonprofit in the area, make sure you talk to them first. Which I know you would do, Dean, but I wanted to get it out there.
Totally understand. Trust in God, lock your car.
I want to jump back to the question about the small village applying for a grant that's less than $10,000. And Hannah had mentioned, can you partner with a nearby community to team up to get the total need? If you have a nonprofit partner, potentially like your development district, or maybe your your natural resources district, or another nonprofit that covers a larger area that would be interested in being your project sponsor. So they are the ones fronting the money. They are the ones signing the contracts. They are the ones submitting the application. and doing that part of the project, but you have a green team locally who is coordinating contractors, identifying, where you're going to be planting, and basically you're the ones locally making sure that the project is happening, but they are the ones that are doing the paperwork side of things. So consider that as a possibility and look into who you might be able to bring on to your green team.
And if you do that, if you're looking for a partner to help you with the project, one thing we didn't list under our eligible expenses is administrative fees. So if your partner needs to have some reimbursement for the time and effort that they put into the project, that is an eligible expense. You can also include administrative expenses for your own green team. If you have a city clerk or someone, or your Parks and Rec supervisor, or whoever who's putting time into this, you can build that time into the grant. So keep that in mind. And when you're inviting partners to work with you on a project, make sure they understand that the administrative fees portion is available to them, and it's not like, they have to do this work just out of the goodness of their heart. They can get reimbursed for their time.
And adjacent to that, it will also pay for any like mailers that you need to send, or like notifications or public notices. So if you need to do anything like that regarding your project, you can put that into your budget. I did see that there was a comment about making sure that you get some quotes from contractors for supplying, installing, and removing trees within your area. To put in your application, you do not have to have the exact trees identified. However, you want to know what the general size or scale of your project is. And what you can do is identify, say you're doing a tree removal project. You can identify a tree that is between 12 and 18 inches in diameter in the trunk. Another one that is between 18 and 24 inches in diameter, and then a third one that is more than 24 inches. So that way you have 3 size classes to estimate. Instead of asking them to estimate a bunch of trees across the town, just get some estimates on those size classes. And then you can kind of get a ballpark idea of how much is it going to cost you to remove a really big tree, a medium-sized tree, and a small tree. And that will help you project out your budget. Now, planting, make sure that when you ask for that estimate, you're not only asking how much is a tree going to cost, but also how much does the planting equipment, like the mulch and the stakes and everything else, and then also how much is it going to cost if you are paying that contractor to plant your trees. A certified arborist is not required to plant trees, but we highly recommend it because we are very strict about the tree planting guidelines. We want to pay for trees that have the most success or highest possible success rate. And so by having somebody, we do have guidelines. They will be in your contract and you will be expected to follow them.
Dean had a question of how many people do we recommend be on a green team? I don't work with the green teams that much, so I'll let the grant managers answer that one.
Depending on the size of your community, if you're working with a village, you at least need one representative from every partner. And whoever that key person is going to be, you could involve the entire tree board, or you could involve maybe 2 members of the tree board. But if you're working on public properties, you most certainly better have the clerk involved or the city administrator involved, and the parks manager. Whoever is managing those green spaces, they need to be a part of this conversation. And so it's who are the people that can help identify what the project looks like, but more importantly, who are the people that are going to be implementing and managing this project and then caring for the trees on the back end. Those are the ones, there's some green teams that have included a local contractor just so that they can get a better idea of what is going on. Now, be careful with conflict of interest with that. So, there's a lot of options, but one person is not a green team. So what
One
other
thing that we
questions?
haven't talked about very much today is tree planting on private property. And that is that is an eligible site that can be done. You do have to get waivers from the homeowners saying that they agree to have a tree planted there and that they will take care of it. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the unique features of planting on private property.
The waiver is the release of liability. So that document has like 3 sections. One is release of liability. The second section is, yes, I agree to participate in this program for you to come onto my private property, hire a contractor to remove this tree as identified, and also I am agreeing to plant a tree back onto my property and care for that tree for 3 years of establishment. And that's what this looks like. Now, for those properties where it's not suitable to put a tree back on that property, say you have an absentee landowner, the success rate of that tree surviving is really low. Priority number 1, like Hannah said, is to put it back on the same property that you removed the tree from. Priority number 2 is within proximity. So the neighbor's house or right across the street. Priority number 3, and this is like if you absolutely cannot get that tree anywhere nearby, is the closest green space, public green space. So whether that's the park, the school, the library, the city office, somewhere that the public is spending time in.
Okay, we had a couple other questions in the chat. So, must a contract come with a guarantee for the trees? And that answer is no, but it's a no, but you are required to replace the trees if they die or something happens to them within the grant contract time period. So that's up to you and the community if you want to take that risk on yourself or if you want to put it on the nursery to provide that guarantee. So just know that. And then we had a question about an outdoor education space, if that can be part of tree removal and planting. Brock, we might need to talk more about that because I think I'm a little confused as to what you're asking there. But basically, as long as it is an urban eligible space that is providing, parks, shade, heat relief, all of those types of things, then it would be an eligible activity, I guess. But if you have a specific question, maybe reach out to us individually and we can help walk through that and make sure before you fill out the application.
Hannah, regarding that, would you cover what other non-tree plant materials would be eligible? Companion
Yeah.
plants and such.
Yeah, we can do a limited amount of companion planting with your tree planting, but that has to be focused on providing other benefits such as erosion control, water management, that kinds of things. And the total for those plants, whether that's a perennial or a shrub or whatever, can't be more than 5% of your total grant application. So when it comes to budget, so make sure that you're looking into that. This is really focused on the tree activities, though we understand in a downtown setting, maybe it's more appropriate to plant some sedges around that tree to help, absorb stormwater runoff or something like that. So just keep that in mind. Lyle would like to know, does adjacent property to a qualified area such as opposite side of the street or public property qualify also? This is once again a yes, but so we have qualified some areas that are not in an eligible space if it serves people in an eligible area. For instance, a school, maybe the school itself is a public school and it isn't in an eligible area, but the students come from an eligible area. That way we can prove that it is directly serving those people. Same with a park. Maybe the city park is like right across the street from an eligible neighborhood. And most of the people in that neighborhood, that's the park that they're using when they go to a park. That's eligible. It's kind of nuanced. So if you're unsure of an area, talk to us first so that we can let you know if it's going to qualify.
Hannah, the question is, can you plant more trees than you remove? If yes, what are the location requirements for those trees?
We love more trees than you remove. Of course, you can remove no trees and just plant trees. That's also an option. Not a lot of people are doing that, but you can. The location requirements is that they're just in an eligible area again. So for those, since there's no removal spot, you don't have to worry about that really specific location, but it does have to be in an eligible area within that community. That can be public or private. It's up to you.
And the next question, our nonprofit is looking to partner with the city parks for a planting project. Are we eligible if we are only proposing to focus on removing, caring for, and planting trees to preserve the tree canopy cover and not work on any workforce development?
Yes, you don't have to do all of the activities to qualify.
You could have one application to do just one activity. So you could have one application that is only for workforce development. You could have one application that's only for tree planting. You could have one that has all of those. And so it's essentially, imagine it as a menu that you can pick and choose from what applies to your project and what do you want to include.
The only thing that you couldn't do as a standalone activity would be tree removal, because there is the one-to-one replanting guideline. So removal has to be paired with planting.
It's favorable if you're going to do a 2-to-1 replacement or more, 5-to-1 replacement. So Pat, with the question of if you plant more trees than you remove, and are the location requirements for these, if the trees that you remove that you have to replace, those are the priority 1, 2, 3 that I was talking about. But if you're planting in addition to those, then whatever other listed eligible properties that are qualified within your community, you could put those other additional trees.
There's a question for you, Chrissy.
She is due in November. I don't know that you can even see. She's a very small baby bump, but my husband thinks she will be here in October for Halloween, and I think we're going to be in the hospital for Thanksgiving.
It's a wide gap, but it'll be something there.
So we'll have a short period of time while Chrissy is out of the office, taking care of the new baby. And in the interim, John and Hannah and I will be working with all of the grant projects across the state. So feel free to contact us while Chrissy is away. We'd be happy to help.
Yes. Jerry asked about columnar trees. Sorry, Chrissy.
I was just going to read it to you.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, so columnar trees are not eligible. Conifers, yes, they are. Once again, it's just there will be some that we don't allow based on specific species. So that's why we just we require that you get them approved ahead of time to make sure that you're meeting those. But there is a number of conifers allowed as part of this.
There is a short list of trees that are absolutely not allowed, and that would be like your Freeman maple, your ash trees. If you buy your trees and you plant your trees and you send us the list after the fact, you are not getting reimbursed for those trees. So make certain that you get the list sent to us before you pay for them or you have them planted. There's no questions. On the conifer side of things, I would highly recommend all of you to consider if you are doing a park planting or basically a non-street tree planting, consider trying to incorporate 10% of your trees as conifers. A lot of times when we're doing these projects, we forget about the evergreens and we don't incorporate them back into our plantings. So our communities are seeing a lot of deciduous trees planted, but not as many conifers. And as we know, conifers can cost a little bit more, but take this advantage, this opportunity where you have 100% coverage on those trees and get some new evergreens, get that next generation planted back into your public green spaces.
All right, we'll take any final questions, but of course, our contact information is up there without mine. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. Go to them first, then I'll jump in where I can. And you are welcome to send any of us any questions, and we will be happy to help. Bruce, yes, of course, Taylor, junipers would be in some instances, because they are a columnar. They're not a specific columnar, but they kind of are. That's one, definitely get it approved ahead of time. There would be maybe limited instances where a Taylor would be appropriate. But get it approved, and then you won't have to worry about it.
Very site specific. If you have extremely limiting factors and you can justify why you need, and that's the only option. But again, get it pre-approved.
All right. Well, I think we'll call it there. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. I hope this helped to get the juices flowing for you. Don't forget to reach out to us if you have other questions or very specific things you wanted to talk about. We will send this presentation out in an email either later today or tomorrow based on how long it takes for it to render. And it will also be posted on our website, so you can find it there and share it with anyone else that you think needs to take a look. So thank you, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.